Kissin Albumit, The Kiss Albums. Nyt, kun Kiss on ilmeisesti vieläkin jäähyväiskiertueellaan, joka vaikuttaa pisemmältä sitten Ramonesin vastaavan, olisi ehkä syytä...
Now, while Kiss are obviously still on their farewell tour, which seems to be the longest one since the return of the Ramones, perhaps this is a good time to do a little inspection of the band's 27-year enduring career. In theory, it falls a little bit short to do the study through records, because Kiss's albums are only one part, and in the opinion of many, an infinitesimal small part of that phenomenon. And Kiss's albums have generally seen quite a bit of peak and trough, sometimes even within a single album. Therefore, I'm not giving them grade marks, but rather, I'm relying a little more on general opinion.
Keskitytään hieman enemmän yleisen mielipiteeseen. Kissin debyttialbumi Simpelisti Van Kiss ilmestyi helmikuussa 1974 Neil Bogartin vasta perustamalla Casablanca-levymerkillä. Levy ei tehnyt outoihin...
Kiss's debut album, simply called Kiss, came out in February 1974 under Neil Bogart's newly formed Casablanca record label. The album didn't really make stars all at once out of them four wearing the strange clothes, but rather it had a tough time making it into Billboard's Top 100, and it peaked at number 82. The undisputed gems of the debut were Deuce, written by Gene Simmons, as well as Ace Frehley's Cold Gin, an irresistibly rolling song supported by a simple riff. Nothing to Lose, on the other hand, was a catchy bubblegum hit with its 50s-style piano and hand clapping. During the performance of 100,000 Years, Gene Simmons developed his own little theater number, complete with its blood-spitting and fire-breathing. Let Me Know was one of the first songs that Paul Stanley presented to Gene Simmons when the two decided to throw their stuff together musically. At that time, it was known by the name of Sunday Driver.
Musiikillisesti hyntyyt yhteen. Tuolloin se tunnettiin nimellä Sunday Driver. Koska debytti ei lyönyt orkesteria läpi.
Because the debut wasn't a breakthrough for the band, Kiss had to earn their keep on the road. In the concerts, they tried for a big showy appearance, but because funds weren't sufficient for the time being, for hydraulic elevating equipment and such furnishings, the setup was quite primitive.
Niin rekvisiitta oli primitiivistä. Kakkosalbumi Hotter Than Hell ilmestyi kauppojen hyllyille saman vuoden syksyllä, mutta
the second album, Hotter Than Hell, appeared in record stores in the fall of the same year, but the growth of their reputation in the live arena still didn't translate into record sales. The extremely poorly produced Hotter Than Hell actually succeeded even worse than the debut, and quality-wise, it was also a step behind its predecessor. However, many fans thought highly of the songs on this album, although a large part of them only got to know this record later. Comin' Home is the undisputed highlight, and though it also works well in the studio style, it really only rose to its true brilliance 21 years later, when Kiss appeared on MTV's Unplugged series. Well, sometimes it pays to wait a while.
Myöhemmin Kissin esiintyessä MTVn Unplugged-sarjassa. Hyvää siis kannattaa joskus odottaa kauankin. Kaupallisten epäonnistumisten putki venyi jo 3, kun
The chain of commercial failures stretched to 3 when Dressed to Kill came out in 1975. Of the early discs, this was definitely the weakest. One of the songs, called She, had been in the repertoire of Wicked Lester, a preliminary stage of Kiss. It was intended for that band's first album, which eventually got left on the record company's shelf, awaiting its publication. However, a little light began to shine at the end of the tunnel, when the irritatingly simple song, Rock and Roll All Night, which later rose to the position of the band's undisputed theme song, climbed to number 68 on the Billboard charts. Compare Rolling Stones and Satisfaction.
sijalle 68 vertaa Rolling Stones ja Satisfaction. Synnytys tuskissaan kierineen Casablancan taloudellinen tilanne oli varsin heikko, joten Bogart, manageri Bill Aucoin sekä Kiss päättivät turvautua.
Spiraling in its painful beginnings, Casablanca's financial situation was pretty weak. Therefore, Bogart, manager Bill Aucoin, as well as Kiss, decided to put their trust in a true game of risk in order to turn the course of the band, as well as the record company, upward. Because Kiss had created a reputation as a live spectacle worthy of seeing, it was decided that the next recording would be a concert recording. For the recording location, they chose Detroit's Cobo Hall, because in their early years, Kiss had been heavily favored in the Detroit area. Alive was released in late 1975, and it finally gave that newly formed band the success they had been awaiting. It's true, I must admit, I don't quite understand what is so great about this album. Actually, it sounds like 95% of live albums in general. Boring. Rock and Roll All Night's live version jumped to the top 20, and suddenly the name Kiss was on everyone's tongue.
Live-albumista yleensä tylsältä. Rock and Roll All Nightin live-versio nousi jo top 20 ja yhtäkkiä nimi Kiss olikin kaikkien huulilla. Seuraavan studioalbumin kanssa Kiss olikin sitten selkä seinää vasten. Menestystä oli saavutettu, mutta se oli tarkoitus myös säilyttää, eli homma oli saatava.
With their next studio album, Kiss was back again with their backs to the wall. Success had been achieved, but the intention was to maintain success. In other words, the task was to make it work in the studio as well. Destroyer came out in late 1976, and for a producer they got Bob Ezrin, who had gained a reputation working with Alice Cooper. Ezrin succeeded in seriously offending guitarist Ace Frehley during recording sessions by getting a studio musician to play his parts on some songs, including Sweet Pain. Destroyer's biggest hit ended up being drummer Peter Criss's ballad, Beth, which Paul Stanley later described with the honest, but quite fitting definition, space filler. Originally, Beth had been titled Beck, but having heard that the piece wasn't about Jeff Beck, Gene Simmons advised Chris to change the name, so that people wouldn't think he was a homosexual. The opening song, Detroit Rock City, was written as thanks to the fans of the area, for reasons that have already been mentioned. Other prominent songs on the album are Do You Love Me, God of Thunder, which fits Gene Simmons like a glove, although the song was actually written by Paul Stanley, and Shout It Out Loud.
Do You Love Me, semmoisille kuin hanska käteen istunut God of Thunder, vaikka raita itse asiassa oli Stanleyn käsialaa, sekä Shout It Out Loud. Destroyer myi kuin leipä, ja rautaa oli tauttavaa, kun se oli kuumaa. Seuraaja Rock and Roll Over.
Destroyer sold like bread, and it was time to strike while the iron was hot. The successor, Rock and Roll Over, came out still in the same year. Recorded almost like a live studio album, it was generally considered weaker than its predecessor, but the buying audience didn't seem to notice. Ace Frehley refused to work with Ezrin again as a producer, and so they brought back Eddie Kramer, who had already twisted dials on Alive. Rock and Roll Over's most prominent songs are Calling Dr. Love, as well as the ballad Hard Luck Woman, once again sung by Chris. Supposedly, Hard Luck Woman was originally intended for Rod Stewart. Some feminist groups branded Kiss with the chauvinist stamp, and when you look at Rock and Roll Over's song list, Love 'Em and Leave 'Em, Makin' Love, Calling Dr. Love, I Want You, Ladies' Room, then at least with a good imagination, these claims can be considered at least somewhat justified.
Väitteitä voidaan pitää edes jokseenkin perusteltuina. Tappotahti jatkui. Love Gun ilmestyi vain hieman reilu vuosi Destroyerin jälkeen.
The rapid pace continued. Love Gun came out just a little more than a year after Destroyer. Once again, Kramer was the producer. The album's title track was like a Paul Stanley version of the Sex Pistols. For Plastercaster, Gene Simmons got his lyrical inspiration from groupies who made plaster molds of their sex companions' family jewels. Then She Kissed Me was a version of the hit by the Barry Greenwich duo, and at least as performed by the Beach Boys, it was known by the name of Then I Kissed Her. Shock Me was the first song sung by Ace Frehley on a Kiss album. Legend has it that Frehley sang on his back on the studio floor because he didn't want anyone to see it. Supposedly, there is a demo version of Christine 16, where besides Simmons, the guitarist and drummer of a band known at that time as Mammoth played along. Later, that Mammoth came to be known as Van Halen.
Myöhemmin tuo Mammoth tultiin tuntemaan nimellä Van Halen. 2 vuotta kestänyt nousukiito huipentui lopulta loppuvuodesta 1977.
The two-year takeoff eventually peaked with Alive 2 in late 1977. This time, the album was recorded at the Los Angeles Forum, and material consisted of the songs from the previous 3 studio albums. Besides these, one vinyl side was dedicated to new studio material, the most prominent of which was Ace Frehley's Rocket Ride.
Joista merkittävin raita oli Ace Frehlin Rocket Ride. 2 vuoden tappotahti alkoi lopultakin vaatia veroa. Perheelliset Chris ja Frehley olisivat ymmärrettävästi halunneet hidastaa tahtia, mutta Stanley, Simmons ja manageri Aucoin halusivat pitää Kiss-masiinan niin korkeilla kierroksilla kuin mahdollista.
The 2 years' rapid pace eventually began to take its toll. Family members, Chris and Frehley, would have understandably wanted to slow down the tempo, but Stanley, Simmons, and manager Aucoin wanted to keep the Kiss machine riding as high as possible. In late 1977, Chris and Frehley announced that they were leaving the band, but they changed their decision when it was agreed upon that all band members would get to make their own solo albums. But that wasn't enough to clear the problems. Chris and Frehley had begun to drown their frustrations in controlled substances. Frehley didn't play on the new songs on Alive 2, with the exception of Rocket Ride, because he simply failed to show up during recording sessions. At that time, his parts were played by Bob Kulick, who will be mentioned again later. Also, Chris failed to show up when voice recordings were done for the band's clumsy sci-fi film Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Part. Therefore, substitute actors spoke his parts on the film.
Tehtiin ääniraitoja. Niinpä leffassa Chrisin äänellä puhuu siijaisnäyttelijä. Soololevyt ilmestyivät samanaikaisesti 1978. Levyt olivat tasollisesti varsin
The solo albums appeared simultaneously in 1978. Quality-wise, the albums were quite mixed, and commercially full of catastrophe. The best-selling albums, Frehley's and Simmons, had a tough time making it into the top 30. New York Groove from Frehley's album was a small hit, but that hardly affected the fact that what we're looking at here is the worst commercial setback for Kiss in 3 years.
Takaisku Kissille 3 vuoteen. Vuodesta 1978 tuli ensimmäinen, jolloin Kissiltä ei ilmestynyt.
1978 was the first year that Kiss didn't put out a studio album. Instead, Casablanca released the double collection called Double Platinum, whose only new song was a newly recorded carbon copy of Strutter from the debut album, this time labeled with a 78 appendix. What we have here is quite a comprehensive collection of Kiss's genuine glory years, although many Clear Peak songs are lacking, like Shout It Out Loud, Plastercaster, Nothing to Lose, Ladies' Room, I Stole Your Love.
selkeä huippubiisi puuttuikin. Shouted out loud. Plastercaster, Nothing to Lose, Ladies Room, I Stole Your Love. 70-luvun lopun lähestyessä alkoivat laihat vuodet.
With the 1970s coming to a close, the spare years began to knock on Kiss's door. Old fans began to wonder how Kiss had become the entertainment establishment for the whole family, an enterprise that offered something for everyone. The punk generation laughed their asses off at the big dinosaurs. Internal conflicts, as well as the parting of ways with manager Bill Aucoin, were damaging shots to the Kiss machine.
Runtelivat Kissportta pahoin. 1979 ilmestynyt Dynasty oli vielä odotetun kaltainen menestys, vaikka monet yhtyeen diggarit kiskoivat kahvit taikka väkevämmät.
Dynasty, which came out in 1979, still acquired the expected sort of success, although many fans swallowed their coffee or their heavier drinks down the wrong pipe when they heard the disco beat I Was Made for Loving You, which ironically became one of the band's biggest hits. One of the songs was written by Desmond Child, who later in the 1980s rose to the position of the Goldfinger of the hard rock genre. Produced by Poncia, who had already earned a reputation as an entertainment producer, the album was branded as excessively light, but despite the complaints, the caravan rolled on. By the end of the year, Dynasty had sold over 3 million copies. Musically speaking, Dynasty's highlight was the trendy Sure Know Something, which astonishingly wasn't able to match the hit single success of I Was Made for Loving You, although as a song, it could wipe the floor with its predecessor.
Single-menestystä, vaikka biisinä se pyyhki edeltäjälleen lattiaa. Peter Crissin päihdeongelmat alkoivat olla jo sitä luokkaa, että Dynastylla mies soitti enää muutamissa biiseissä. Vuonna 1992 ilmestyneellä
Peter Criss's substance abuse problems got to be to such an extent that he didn't play on all of the songs on Dynasty. On the Extreme Close-Up video, which came out in 1992, there's a short scene backstage during the Dynasty tour where Simmons has to lead Chris to the stage by hand. Chris had changed to such an extent within a few years that while in 1977 he was about to leave the band voluntarily, he now needed Simmons and Stanley's long persuasions before he decided to leave his position. After leaving the band, Chris released 2 solo albums, Out of Control in 1980 and Let Me Rock You in 1982, which didn't quite leave their mark on the sales charts. His prediction that I'm gonna sell 10 million records on my own, I don't need this band, eventually showed itself to be anything but true.
82, jotka eivät juurikaan jälkiä myyntilistoille jättäneet. Miehen Simmonsille lausuma profetia, I'm gonna sell 10 million records on my own, I don't need this band, oli lopulta kaikkea muuta kuin paikkaansa pitävä. Chris esiintyi yhtyeen jäsenenä vielä seuraavan albumin Unmaskedin kansikuvissa, mutta levyllä rumpuja soitti.
Chris still appeared as a member of the band on the cover photos of the next album, Unmasked, but the drums on the album were played by Anton Fig, who had already drummed on Ace Frehley's solo album. Once again produced by Poncia, Unmasked was a real crash after Dynasty's sales years. It remained at number 35 on the Billboard charts, and the song Shandy, the bait for a hit, didn't do any better. Chris was replaced by Eric Carr, and Kiss, who had just taken it right up the ass, left for a European tour, where their opening band was the beginning British band named Iron Maiden. Carr was a better drummer than Chris, but he was only hired as a paid musician without decision-making authority. So Simmons and Stanley, who were always pulling on the same strings, were able to override the protesting freely in standard procedure.
Kiskoneet, Simmons ja Stanley, pystyivät kaappaamaan käytännössä kaiken päätäntävallan vastaan hangoittelevan Freilin edestä. Unmasked albumin floppaamisesta sisuntunut nelikko suuntasi jälleen studioon alkaen kokoamaan materiaalia työnimellä.
After the Unmasked album's flop, the four were determined to get back on track. They headed back to the studio to start gathering material for an album that was proceeding under the working title Rockin' with the Boys. However, they decided to throw the finished material in the garbage can. For help, they called Frehley's old favorite Ezrin back into the lineup and came up with the big idea of building a soundtrack for a film that was to be depicted later. If the band had done a belly flop on Unmasked, then Music from the Elder was a total catastrophe. A bunch of paper-thin songs with their pretentious string sections and opera influences was like some sort of low-rate version of Queen. Artificially artistic shit in a big package. The Elder stumbled onto the charts in the US to number 75, and the reception was so crushing that they didn't see it as necessary to throw together a tour to promote the album. Later, after having left the band, Ace Frehley admitted that having heard the finished version of the album, he didn't even want it released. The results of the vote? 2-1. Well, sorry Ace.
Hän ei halunnut sitä edes julkaistavaksi. Äänestyksen tulos 2-1. Sori vaan ase. Elderin saaman murskakritiikin jälkeen oli suunnan muutoksen tarve selkeä. Tuottajan pallille hankittiin tuntematon kyky Michael James Jackson, joka alkoi suunnata.
After the scathing criticism of the Elder, the need for a change in direction was clear. The unknown talent, Michael James Jackson, was brought to the producer's chair. He began to direct the band's sound back to its original direction, heavy rock and roll. It was originally intended that the first 4 songs would be released as an EP, but eventually they were surrounded by a half-ass collection and stamped with the pissed-out name Kiss Killers. The new songs were the heaviest in a long time, but unfortunately also mediocre. Only I'm a Legend Tonight can be considered worthy. They didn't see it as necessary to release Killers in the US, where the band's popularity was extremely low.
Julkaista USAssa, jossa yhtyeen suosio oli pohjamudissa. Juurilleen paluuta koittaneen Kissin koko pitkä Creatures of the Night oli jäljelle jääneiden fanien mielestä selkeä käänne parempaan.
Breaking back to their roots, Kiss put out the full-length album Creatures of the Night. In the opinion of Kiss's remaining fans, it was a clear change for the better. The heavy and virile theme of Creatures didn't win over a big audience, and the album sold poorly. Many consider Creatures to be Kiss's best album, but the song material is quite uneven, fluctuating from songs that sound like Led Zeppelin leftovers like Keep Me Comin' and Saint and Sinner, all the way up to the brilliant title track and the album's final song, War Machine. Although Ace Frehley was present on the cover photos and still a member of the band when the album was released, you don't quite hear his music on the record. Rather, the guitar parts were played by various studio musicians, including Robin Ford and a certain Vincent Cusano.
Muun muassa Robin Ford sekä eräs Vincent Cusano. Frehley esiintyi vielä Creaturesilta lohkaistun singlen I Love It Loud-videolla, mutta lopulta mies katsoi saaneensa tarpeekseen ja erosi vielä vuoden 1982 aikana.
Ace Frehley still appeared on the video for I Love It Loud from the Creatures album, but he eventually saw that he had had enough and quit the band still in 1982. Frehley was replaced by the studio musician Cusano, who received his Kiss baptism under the name Vinnie Vincent, and who Gene Simmons later described as the most self-destructive person I've ever met. The new Kiss lineup, Simmons, Stanley, Carr, Vincent, headed for South America. Their gigs ended up with 3 nights at Rio de Janeiro's Maracana Stadium, where 250,000 fanatic Brazilian fans followed the band. It would later become clear that those gigs would mark the end of an era.
Olisivat erään aikakauden päätepiste. Todellakin, kun seuraava Kiss-albumi Look It Up ilmestyi kauppojen hyllyille loppuvuodesta 1983, ei kannessa koomeilleilla 4 henkilöllä ollutkaan enää päällä hassuja harniskoja.
Without a doubt, when the next Kiss album, Lick It Up, appeared in record stores in late 1983, the 4 characters posing on the cover were no longer wearing the foolish armor suits and war paint on their faces. Actually, they looked a lot like ordinary long-hair rockers, and recognizing them as Kiss would have been difficult without that 17-centimeter tongue that hung out of its hairiest member's open mouth. Theories were put forth that the reason for removing the makeup was a skin cancer risk, but the band itself denied such claims, and stated that the decision to wash their faces was simply due to getting sick of the old routine. Lick It Up elevated Kiss once again to popularity in America, being the first album since Dynasty in the top 20. Actually, the album is quite poor. Only the title track and A Million to One are first-rate songs, but I've already said this before.
Ainoastaan nimibiisi ja A Million to One olivat parasta A-luokkaa, mutta tämänhän minä olenkin kertonut jo aikaisemmin. Kissin pyörittäminen alkoi jäädä yhä enenevässä määrin Paul Stanleyn harteille, kun Simmons alkoi toteuttaa lapsuuden haavettaan näyttelemisestä. Seuraavan albumin vuonna
Managing Kiss began to fall to an ever-increasing extent on the shoulders of Paul Stanley when Simmons started to carry out his childhood dream of acting. During the recording of the next album, Animalize in 1984, Simmons was busy filming his debut Runaway and only had time to play on 4 of the album's 8 songs. On the rest of the songs, ex-Plasmatics bassist Gene Beauvoir thumped the 4-string. A new face had also come to the guitarist position. Vincent's experience as a low-ranking member was too hard a mouthful to swallow, and he was replaced by the skillful guitarist Mark St. John. Animalize continued Lick It Up's beginning commercial upswing. Heaven's on Fire became one of the band's biggest hits in years, but besides that, and While the City Sleeps, Animalize went on for a few years, going in one ear and out the other.
Ja While the City Sleepsin lisäksi Animalize jatkoi muutaman vuoden jatkuneella toisesta korvasta sisään ja toisesta ulos linjalla. St. John joutui astumaan albumin julkaisua seuranneen kiertueen aikana sivuun, sillä hän sairastui harvinaiseen Reuterin syndroomaan, joka aiheutti raajojen torpoamista. Pikahälytyksellä tuuraajaksi hankittiin Kissin pitkä
St. John had to step to the side during the tour following the album because he became ill with the rare Reuter syndrome, which caused swelling of the limbs. To get a replacement on short notice, Kiss acquired their longtime helper Bob Kulick's younger brother Bruce, who had already practiced the Kiss style, playing on Lonely is the Hunter from the Animalize album. St. John was eventually swept neatly to the side, and Kulick became an official member of the band even before the recordings of the next album. Asylum appeared in late 1985. The song material was a clear stride ahead of that of the two previous records. Problems were caused by the album's weak sound. A little bit more emphasis on the guitar parts could have made a classic, at least out of a King of the Mountain. Tears Are Falling became a small hit on both sides of the Atlantic. The showy, gaudy, neon flashing videos for Tears Are Falling and Who Wants to Be Lonely, by the way, are the best way to get a headache besides the homepage of MTV3's website, not for epileptics.
MTV3 nettisaitin aloitussivun jälkeen seuraavaksi paras keino saada päänsärky ei epileptikoille. Seuraava Kiss-albumia saatiinkin odotella sitten siihen mennessä pissin aika. Ron Nevisonin tuottama laimeja ja löysä Crazy Night.
The wait for the next Kiss album was the longest one yet. Produced by Ron Nevison, the weak, dull Crazy Nights came out in October 1987. A moderate success, but the song material is inexcusably lifeless. The record's best song, Turn on the Night, rose in the direction of the old anthem songs like Rock and Roll All Night, Shout It Out Loud, and so forth, but without the same sharpness. The ballad Reason to Live was quite charming, and the album's semi-title track was the band's biggest hit single in England, where, a year later, they discovered that the arrangements had changed after 8 years. On the performers list at Donington's Monsters of Rock, the band was ranked second. Ranked ahead of them was only, and quite fittingly, Iron Maiden.
Bändi oli rankattu kakkoseksi, edelleen vain aivan oikein Iron Maiden. Jouluksi 1988 ilmestyi kokoelma Smashes, Thrashes and Hits, jonka takana oli kaksi täysin uutta raitaa.
For Christmas 1988, they put out the collection Smashes, Thrashes and Hits. The album's bait was 2 new songs, as well as the new version of Beth, sung by Eric Carr. The new songs, Let's Put the X in Sex and You Make Me Rock Hard, credit them for their innuendos, were both quite effective performances, but otherwise, the album's success remained lifeless. The situation was best described by some critics' question, how many times can you buy a Love Gun?
Kuinka monta kertaa voi ostaa Love Gunin? 80-luku oli ollut Kissille, jos ei nyt aivan matalalentoa, niin kuitenkin vuoristorataa. Vuosikymmenen vaihtuessa vaunu jäi korkealle, sillä loppuvuodesta
When the 1980s were not quite a low flight for Kiss, then they were at least a roller coaster ride. At the turn of the decade, the train was riding high, since Hot in the Shade, which came out in late 1989, was one of the band's best yields of the ending decade. The collection of 15 songs could have used a little condensing, so that one could have spoken of a true peak album. But, as it was, Hot in the Shade filled the quota of a good Kiss album. The song Forever, written together with Michael Bolton, was the band's biggest hit single since Beth was number 8, 13 years earlier in the U.S. The album's most clear bait for a hit, Hide Your Heart, didn't succeed as well in its list climbing, partly because there had already been many other recorded versions of the song. For the video of the third single, Rise to It, Stanley and Simmons painted their faces publicly for the first time in over 6 years.
Kolmossinglen Rise to It videota varten Stanley ja Simmons maalasivat naamansa ensimmäistä kertaa julkisesti yli 6 vuoteen. 90-luku ei alkanut Kissille hyvissä merkeissä. Rumpali Eric Carr sairastui syöpään alkuvuodesta 1990.
The 90s didn't begin under very good circumstances for Kiss. Drummer Eric Carr became sick with cancer in early 1991, and eventually, the well-liked drummer, who had been through the bottom-out period and then the new takeoff of the band, passed away in November of the same year. To fill Carr's big shoes, they got Eric Singer, who had played as a paid musician in several bands, including the band Paul Stanley threw together in the 1980s for doing club rounds. Other stages in Singer's career had been Lita Ford's band, ex-Ozzy Osbourne guitarist Jake Ely's Badlands, and Gary Moore's band.
Oli ollut Lita Fordin yhtye, ex-Ozzy Osbourne kitaristi Jake Elyn Badlands ja Gary Mooren orkesteri. Carrin menestyksestä sisuuntunut kvartetti palkkasi vanhan saateen tekijänsä Bob Ezrinin takaisin ruutuun ja teki edesmenneelle rumpalilleen kunniaa viihaisella, raskaalla ja ennen kaikkea hyvällä albumilla.
Determined to bounce back after Carr's passing, the quartet hired their old rainmaker, Bob Ezrin, back to the lineup and paid a salute to their past drummer with their angry, heavy, and above all, quality album Revenge, which came out in May 1992. The album's opening song, the upbeat Unholy, was a Kiss classic right from the start. Stylistically, it's like a part 2 of War Machine from the Creatures of the Night album, a winding, twisting riff guided by a tank that lays waste to everything within close range. Another highlight for Simmons was the ZZ Top-styled Domino, a song that's as politically incorrect as possible. For example, When That Bitch Bends Over, I Forget My Name. Another highlight on the album is Stanley's I Just Wanna Take It Off, for which local strippers were hired to promote the album on the following tour. God Gave Rock and Roll to You, number 2, which was presented in the film Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, was recorded while Carr was still alive, and the single had already climbed to the British top 10. At the end of the album, as a final tribute to their past member, they added Carr's drum solo, called Carr Jam 1981.
Viimeiseksi kunnian osoitukseksi edesmenneelle kumppanille Carrin rumpusoolo nimeltä Carr Jam 1981. Monien mielestä musiikillisesti päättävimmän Kiss-kokoonpanon live-meiningistä saatiin nauttia virallisia.
In the opinion of many, it was Kiss's most musically competent lineup. One was able to enjoy their live activities through official channels a year after Revenge, when the second sequel of the Alive series, Alive 3, appeared in record stores. The song selection is a positive surprise, since many of the self-evidents were left out this time. Well, of course, Rock and Roll All Night and Detroit Rock City were present, but thankfully space was also made for songs from Revenge and from the 1980s. Of the 17 songs, only Deuce and Watchin' You represent material from earlier than 1977, with the exception of the 2 mentioned above.
17 raidasta edustivat vain Deuce ja Watchin' You. Seuraava Kiss-julkaisua saatiin odotella 3 vuotta. Kesällä 1995 Kiss järjesti oman Kiss-konvention kiertueensa, jossa esiteltiin.
Fans had to wait 3 years for the next Kiss album. In the summer of 1995, Kiss organized their own Kiss Convention tour, where Kiss memorabilia, costumes, and so forth were presented. Kiss's Unplugged set was a part of each tour, which was carried out at the request of the audience. Peter Criss appeared at the Los Angeles meeting and performed his old hit, Hard Luck Woman, with Kiss. The Unplugged gigs ended up in New York at the MTV studios, where Kiss's MTV Unplugged segment was filmed on September 9th, 1995. The 15-year anticipation of many fans was finally resolved when Chris and Freely replaced Kulik and Singer, and the original lineup performed the songs 2000 Man and Beth. The rest of the show was performed by the current band members at the time, except that the encore songs, Rock and Roll All Night and Nothing to Lose, were played by all 6 members. But the seeds of the reunion had already been sown.
Mutta siemenet reunionille oli kylvetty. MTV Unplugged-albumi ilmestyi kauppojen hyllyille maaliskuussa 1996. Kissin kritisoijien
The MTV Unplugged album appeared in record stores in March 1996. Since the beginning of time, the favorite complaint of Kiss's critics had been that the band's songs are poor quality and childishly simple. But at least now, the Unplugged album crushed those claims. Many old Kiss songs, like Comin' Home, Plaster Caster, Sure Know Something, Do You Love Me, Nothing to Lose, fit quite nicely into the acoustic style. And a good song, as is well known, is one that functions well when stripped of all of its studio effects. It's a great record, whose only minus is all the reunion fuss, unnecessary in my opinion. Things didn't really get so out of hand as they did in the corresponding video, where Chris's childish or senile behavior is simply a tiresome sight.
Taikka seniili käytös on yksinkertaisesti rasittava näky. Reunion kiertue julkistettiin lopulta vähän Unplugged-albumin julkaisun jälkeen.
The reunion tour was finally announced a little bit after the release of the Unplugged album. At that time, there only needed to be one tour under consideration, but Kulik and Singer quickly informed that they weren't interested in sitting around twiddling their thumbs, and left to work on their own projects. In the summer of 1996, Kiss released the hastily thrown together You Wanted the Best, You Got the Best album, which contained previously unreleased live studio songs. They also put out the remastered Greatest Kiss in the same year for the Christmas markets.
Greatest Kiss. Singerin ja Kulikin kanssa 1995 nauhoitettu Carnival of Souls.
Recorded together with Singer and Kulik in 1995, Carnival of Souls, the final sessions, was finally released in the fall of 1997. The record had already spread through the world for a year as a bootleg copy, so all of the die-hard fans already owned it then, and the album no longer seemed to interest the random buyer. The heavy, somewhat grunge-like sound didn't really fit Kiss that well, and Carnival was quite a dismal showing. The best succeeding songs are Simmons' Seduction of the Innocent as well as Childhood's End.
Seduction of the Innocent sekä Childhood's End. Alkuperäisen kokoonpanon ensimmäinen täysipainoinen studiolevy 21 vuoteen ilmestyi lopulta syksyllä 1998.
The original lineup's first full-length studio album in 21 years finally appeared in the fall of 1998. However, Psycho Circus was a pretty flat performance, and, in the end, sales didn't come anywhere near expectations either. The album's best song is Space Ace's Into the Void. Other songs that are among the better ones are Raise Your Glasses and I Pledge Allegiance to the State of Rock and Roll, one of whose writers appears to be Cuomo. It could hardly be that guy from Weezer, could it? A lawsuit was filed over the song Dreamin' because it was claimed that the song resembles Alice Cooper's I'm 18. Well, I must admit, at least to me, that song doesn't come to mind when I hear Dreamin'. But in America, lawsuits are filed over one matter after another.
asioista jos toisista. Näin. Nykytietojen varassa.
And so it is, resting on current knowledge, it seems that Psycho Circus is Kiss's last studio album. Supposedly, the Alive series has another sequel coming, and some sort of song list has already been seen on the net. But as to its official nature, I'm not able to say yay or nay.
En osaa sanoa juuta eikä jaata.